Insight Quarterly Magazine Issue -32 April to June 2024. Compiled and edited by Justin Phillips, Akanksha Verma. Transcribed and printed by Mitra Jyothi, in collaboration with Radio Udon. Subscription ₹100 yearly. Mitra Jyothi Digital Library. Mitra Jyothi. CA Site No. P22, 31st Main, 18th Cross, HSR Layout. Sector 1, behind NIFT College, Bangalore 560102. Phone, 080-22587623/25. Email, mj.tblibrary@gmail.com. Website, www.mitrajyothi.org. Copyright Notice. This book is reproduced in accessible format for people with bona fide print disabilities by Mitra Jyothi, CA Site No. P22, 18th Cross, 31st Main, Sector 1, HSR Layout, behind NIFT College, Bengaluru 560102. Phone No. 2258763/2258765, Country Code +91 Bengaluru Code 080, Email mj.tblibrary@gmail.com, Website www.mitrajyothi.org. This book is created for distribution for the print disabled only and in accordance with the Marrakesh Treaty ratified by India on July 24, 2014 and Section 52, 1, ZB, of the Copyright Act, 1957. This accessible format production of the original publication is permitted to be used only by persons with print disabilities. Any further reproduction, distribution to any person without a print disability or any commercial use of this book is strictly prohibited and will be subject to legal action. Dear readers, what an amazing summer it has been for us. India finally won the T20 World Cup. We had to wait a long time to lift a trophy. Our shooters have also brought us glory in the ongoing Olympics. Our recent triumphs in the World Cup and the Olympics have ushered in a new era of sports excellence for the nation. These victories are not just isolated achievements. They symbolize the culmination of years of dedication, strategic planning, and relentless effort by athletes, coaches, and the various sports administrators. World Cup victory. A cricketing masterpiece. India's win in the World Cup has reaffirmed its status as a cricketing powerhouse. The team's journey to the top was marked by consistent performances, strategic brilliance, and an unyielding spirit. Key players rose to the occasion, delivering match-winning performances under pressure. This victory is a testament to the depth of talent in Indian cricket and the effectiveness of its domestic cricket structure, which has been the bedrock of nurturing young talent. The impact of this victory extends beyond the cricket field. It has reignited the passion for cricket among millions of fans and has inspired a new generation of cricketers. The win has also boosted the morale of the nation, showcasing the power of sports in uniting people and fostering a sense of national pride. Olympic glory. A testament to determination and hard work. India's success in the Olympics is equally significant, marking a historic achievement for the nation. The medal haul across various disciplines highlight the country's growing prowess in a diverse range of sports. Athletes like Neeraj Chopra, PV Sindhu, and Bajrang Punia have become national icons, symbolizing the heights that can be reached with perseverance and dedication. This Olympic success is the result of concerted efforts to improve the sports infrastructure, provide better training facilities, and support athletes financially and mentally. Initiatives like the Target Olympic Podium Scheme, TOPS, have played a crucial role in identifying and nurturing talent, providing athletes with the necessary resources to compete at the highest level. India's recent wins in the World Cup and the Olympics are not just sporting achievements. They are milestones in the country's journey towards becoming a global sports powerhouse. These victories reflect the resilience, talent, and hard work of Indian athletes and the growing maturity of the nation's sports infrastructure. As India basks in the glory of these triumphs, it is also a time to reflect on the lessons learned and to continue investing in the future of Indian sports. The road ahead is promising, and with continued effort and support, India can look forward to even greater achievements on the global stage. In this edition, we have articles about AI, baking, CBSE exams, driving, etc. So sit back and enjoy the edition while our sportsmen strut in glory. If you would like to contribute an article, please get in touch with me. I wish you similar success as our sports persons have achieved. Happy reading! Justin Phillips, Editor. Content. 1. Out and about. 2. Embracing AI. A bright future for the visually impaired. 3. Giggles and cuddles. 4. The power of acceptance. 5. Self-driving, the future is here. 6. A wild 1970s hijacking. 7. Happiness in every bite. 8. I work to reform CBSE's testing system. NTA can learn from it. 1. Out and about. Out with the Zimbabwe dollar, in with the ZiG. Zimbabwe, recently, has started circulating a new currency to replace one that has been battered by depreciation and often outright rejection by the people. The ZiG was introduced electronically in early April, but people are now able to use banknotes and coins. It's the southern African country's latest attempt to halt a long-running currency crisis underlining its persistent economic troubles. The government had previously floated various ideas to replace the Zimbabwe dollar, including introducing gold coins to stem inflation and even trying out a digital currency. Since it was launched electronically on April 5, the ZiG, short for Zimbabwe Gold and backed by the country's gold reserves, appears to be heading down the same path of mistrust, with some government departments refusing to accept it. The ZiG is the sixth currency Zimbabwe has used since the spectacular 2009 collapse of the Zimbabwe dollar amid hyperinflation of 5 billion%, one of the world's worst currency crashes to date. That set off a chaotic series of events. First, the U.S. dollar was allowed as legal tender, then banned, then unbanned. Earliest deep-sea shipwreck. The oldest shipwreck ever found in the deep sea has been discovered on the Mediterranean sea floor, shedding light on trade during the Late Bronze Age. The 39 to 46-foot-long ship was found roughly 56 miles off the northern coast of Israel at a depth of nearly 6,000 feet during a seafloor survey by a natural gas exploration company. The wreck contained hundreds of intact Canaanite amphory clay jars used to store goods, suggesting it sank between 1400 BCE and 1300 BCE. The deep-sea discovery challenges assumptions that Bronze Age trade occurred only close to shorelines and suggests mariners may have used celestial navigation. While the exact cause of the sinking remains unknown, the ship settled without capsizing, and experts speculate a storm or pirate attack could have been responsible. The world's oldest found shipwreck is over 4,200 years old and is located in waters 50 feet deep off the coast of the Greek island Dokos. An asteroid is scheduled to pass an estimated 4 million miles from Earth today, its closest encounter in over 100 years. Roughly the size of Mount Everest at 1.4 miles wide, asteroid 2011 UL21 was once predicted to have a 1 in 71 million chance of hitting Earth by the end of the decade, an estimate experts now put at 0. Later this week, a much smaller asteroid, roughly the size of a stadium and discovered days ago, is scheduled to pass within roughly 75% of the distance to the Moon. Both rocks remnants from the early solar system are expected to be visible using a telescope. A planet-killing asteroid is not expected to threaten Earth for at least the next 1,000 years, though NASA recently conducted an exercise to gauge readiness. See more. NASA has awarded SpaceX $843 million to develop and build a space vehicle to safely remove the International Space Station from orbit around 2030. Launch costs for the vehicle, which NASA will own and operate, will be procured separately. Early plans indicate the U.S. deorbit vehicle will transfer the aging station, which weighs roughly 1 million pounds, in 3 stages and later disassemble itself. Once released, Each stage will plow through the atmosphere at 17,000 miles per hour to land in the South Pacific's so-called spacecraft cemetery. The $3 billion annual budget of the ISS will likely go toward deeper space exploration while opening up low Earth orbit to private developers of space stations. A joint effort of the US, Russia, Japan, Canada, and the European Union, the ISS is the largest structure ever built in space and has been continuously inhabited since 2000. Over 3,300 ISS studies conducted by 270 individuals have produced discoveries in medicine, agriculture, and more. Read about the ISS legacy. Bionic breakthrough. A bionic device developed at MIT allows people to control a leg prosthetic with their minds, according to a new study. The device can yield a more natural gait and reduce phantom limb pain, among other benefits. The prosthetic takes advantage of muscles' tendency to move in tandem, with control of one leg muscle signaling a complementary action in the other through the body's nervous system. While traditional surgery severs this muscle connection at the amputation site, a below-the-knee surgery can retain them. A bionic prosthetic can then use electrodes to detect muscle movements, resulting in a more natural gait than traditional robotic legs. In contrast, traditional prosthetics rely on pre-programmed gaits responding to environmental factors like terrain. The study has the potential to change the standard of care for hundreds of thousands of Americans who live with the loss of a leg. Researchers hope to make the bionic prosthetic commercially available within 5 years. Ants treat certain leg injuries with life-saving amputations. Lab experiments show that some ants will treat the injured legs of comrades, and when it's necessary will even perform medical amputations. When an ant injures its leg, it sometimes will turn to a buddy who will help out by gnawing the leg off, effectively performing a life-saving limb amputation. That's according to some new experiments described in the journal Current Biology, which show that ants are the only animal other than humans known to practice amputation as a medical treatment. Not only can they do this, but they are even able to diagnose the wounds and, depending on the location, adapt the treatment accordingly to maximize the survival chances of the injured, says Eric Frank, who studies social wound care among ants at the University of Würzburg in Germany. I find that truly remarkable. In the past, his group has studied how termite hunting ants in the tropics substantially reduce the death rate among injured nestmates by treating their wounds with antibiotic secretions that come from a special gland. But that gland doesn't exist in a common species known as Florida carpenter ants, or Camponotus floridhanus. This species nests in rotting wood and will fight rivals to defend its home, so Frank wanted to see how these ants would react when confronted with the kind of injuries that come with battle. His team quickly observed that these ants would cut off wounded legs, much like miniature Civil War-era surgeons. And this really piqued my interest, he says. An injured ant will present its leg to a nestmate, who will lick the wound and then move up the leg to bite at the shoulder joint for many minutes at a time, until the leg is severed. You can see the other one not moving, not really flinching and accepting it, says Frank. Almost all of the injured ants that got an amputation from a buddy survived. Meanwhile, ants with leg injuries that were kept away from their nestmates, so that they didn't get this treatment, frequently died. Interestingly, ants would only perform an amputation when an injury was high up on an ant's leg, close to the middle of its body. Wounds lower down on the leg didn't elicit this treatment, although ants would lick at the injuries. That observation prompted Frank's team to try performing amputations on ants with lower leg injuries that had been infected with bacteria. They found that the ants always died. Frank and his colleagues were puzzling over why amputation solely seemed to work for upper leg injuries, until they closely studied the leg's anatomy. They saw that muscles in the upper leg normally help move blood like liquid through an ant's body. It's those muscles that get damaged when an upper leg injury occurs. This means that bacteria or other pathogens in an upper leg injury would spread to the rest of the body more slowly than they would from a lower leg injury. The fact that ants only perform amputations in certain circumstances is really cool, says Granauer. Florida man arrested for shooting down Walmart delivery drone. A 72-year-old Florida man has been arrested for allegedly shooting a Walmart delivery drone out of the sky, causing thousands of dollars in damage. According to ClickOrlando.com, Dennis Wynn faces multiple charges including criminal mischief and discharging a firearm in public. The incident occurred in the Overlook at Lake Lausia neighborhood in Lake County, Florida. A two-man crew from Drone Up, Walmart's drone delivery partner, was conducting a proof-of-concept mock delivery when they heard what sounded like a gunshot. The drone, which was descending from 230 feet to about 75 feet, quickly returned to the nearby Walmart store. Upon inspection, the crew discovered a bullet hole in the drone's payload system. The damage to the drone is estimated at $2,500, with additional business impact due to the aircraft being rendered inoperable. The arrest. When contacted by deputies, Wynn allegedly admitted to using a 9mm handgun to shoot the drone, claiming he thought it was surveilling him. The arrest affidavit states that Wynn recounted past experiences with drones that he believed were spying on him. While waiting for a transport vehicle, Wynn allegedly yelled out to a neighbor that he was going to jail for shooting a drone, the affidavit notes. This incident highlights the challenges faced by Walmart's drone delivery program, which was announced in 2022. The retail giant partnered with Virginia-based Drone Up to expand drone deliveries in Florida, aiming to influence the expansion of drone technology and enable other businesses to explore its benefits. Legal implications. Wynn now faces charges of shooting or throwing a deadly missile into dwellings, vessels, or vehicles, criminal mischief above $1,000, and discharging a firearm in public or on residential property. He was released on a $13,500 bond. This incident underscores the growing pains associated with the integration of drone technology into everyday life. While companies like Walmart and Drone Up are pushing the boundaries of convenience and efficiency, public perception and understanding of drone operations remain significant hurdles. The shooting of a delivery drone not only raises safety concerns but also highlights the need for better education and community outreach regarding drone operations. As drone delivery services expand, it's crucial for companies and local authorities to work together to address privacy concerns and ensure public safety. Moreover, this incident may prompt a review of current regulations surrounding drone operations in residential areas. It's a reminder that as technology advances, so too must our legal frameworks and societal norms adapt to accommodate these changes. Brittle bone breakthrough. Scientists have solved a long-standing mystery about how new mothers retain bone strength during breastfeeding, according to a new study. The results may lead to treatments to help injuries heal more quickly and prevent bone diseases in the general population. The high nutritional demands of milk can deplete bones of essential calcium-based minerals during lactation. Because estrogen, which typically helps promote healthy bones, see overview, drops in the postpartum period, it was unclear how new mothers maintain near-healthy bone density. The study found that a hormone produced exclusively during breastfeeding known as CCN3 jumps in to take the place of estrogen, triggering bone formation throughout the body. Although CCN3 is only produced by new mothers, introducing it to any mouse young or old, male or female strengthened and promoted bone growth. Researchers hope the findings may one day help treat osteoporosis, which affects more than 200 million people globally. A new voice. Mayo Clinic this week reported the results of the world's first total larynx transplant on an active cancer patient. 4 months after surgery, 59-year-old Marty Kadayan has regained his ability to speak, swallow, and breathe independently. Kadayan, diagnosed with a rare form of laryngeal cancer called chondrosarcoma, underwent the complex 21-hour surgery as part of a clinical trial in February. The procedure involved transplanting his cancerous larynx, also known as the voice box, and other organs, including his pharynx, upper trachea, and thyroid. See overview. This marks the third documented total larynx transplant in the US and one of only a few documented worldwide. About 12,650 people in the US will be diagnosed with laryngeal cancer this year, or about 0.6% of all new cancer cases. Dark oxygen mystery. Oxygen is being released at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, a new study revealed recently. The discovery has baffled scientists, challenging the long-held belief that only living things can produce oxygen through photosynthesis. In 2013, researchers were studying the seafloor between Hawaii and Mexico, 2.5 miles below the surface. Upon sequestering a seafloor sample, researchers discovered oxygen concentrations were increasing without access to sunlight. The findings repeated in later expeditions have yet to be fully explained. A leading hypothesis posits rocks containing valuable metals like nickel and cobalt are splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen through seawater electrolysis. Elevated voltage in the samples, approaching that of an AA battery, supports the theory, though researchers have not identified a hydrogen byproduct. The discovery challenges the theory that life originated through ancient microbes conducting photosynthesis. It also raises concerns deep-sea mining, see more, W/video, could disturb ecosystems relying on these rocks for oxygen. Blood test breakthrough. A new diagnostic blood test for Alzheimer's disease was found to correctly identify the condition around 90% of the time, outperforming specialists' assessments based on physical and cognitive symptoms. The breakthrough offers a potential tool to accurately diagnose the disease and at earlier stages of development. Alzheimer's affects almost 7 million Americans yet remains notoriously difficult to diagnose. Accumulations of molecules known as amyloid beta plaques and misfolded tau proteins are believed to play a key role, C101, but are challenging to detect and measure. The new test called PreCivity-AD2 measures the ratios of both present in a patient's blood, plugging the result into a proprietary algorithm to predict the risk of developing Alzheimer's. Doctors hope the simple and cheap test can replace expensive scans and invasive spinal taps currently considered best in class for diagnosis. 2. Embracing AI, a bright future for the visually impaired. What is AI? AI, or artificial intelligence, is an integral part of our digital lives, seamlessly working behind the scenes to make our interactions more intuitive and personalized. Have you ever noticed how YouTube recommends videos that match your interests, or how advertisements appear for products you've recently searched for or discussed? When you say "OK Google," and your device understands you better than anyone else, that's AI at work. More advanced features like automatic transcript generation during live Zoom or Google Meet calls, or converting videos into different languages, are all powered by AI. Broadly speaking, AI can be classified into two main categories: predictive analytics and content generation. Predictive analytics involves making future predictions or categorizing data based on patterns, while content generation, especially with the latest GPT-based models, focuses on creating new content by learning from vast amounts of data across the Internet. How widespread is the influence of AI going to be? AI is poised to become an omnipresent force in our digital ecosystem. Imagine writing or speaking messages on WhatsApp, and having the next reply automatically generated by AI, needing only your review before sending. AI will soon be able to understand complex past conversations and craft the best possible responses. In the near future, AI will act as a co-pilot and assistant for virtually every online activity, from watching videos to shopping, texting, video calling, and entertainment. It will be integrated at every level of the tech stack, enhancing our digital experiences in countless ways. Is there any area that AI will not affect? AI is best viewed as a productivity enhancer, helping us achieve our goals more efficiently. It will have an impact on almost everything we do, but certain fields may see less influence. For example, areas requiring deep human empathy, such as psychology and certain aspects of medical care, as well as experiences that are inherently physical, like travel and live musical performances, will remain less affected by AI. However, Even in these fields, AI can play a supportive role. Products like Oracle Medical Assistant can save doctors a significant amount of time by automating tasks such as note-taking and patient summaries. How can AI assist those of us who are differently abled? The advancements in AI technology hold significant promise for visually impaired individuals. Today, AI can describe entire scenes with remarkable accuracy, as seen in features like Be My AI. Just a few years ago, this level of assistance was unimaginable. AI plugins can now summarize complete web pages, making it easier to acquire knowledge. For those who are visually impaired, AI can be a game changer in education and learning. Imagine being able to systematically learn about any topic of interest, with AI providing personalized learning experiences tailored to your expertise level. Whether you are a beginner or an intermediate learner, you can inform AI of your proficiency in a given subject, and it will adjust the complexity and depth of its explanations accordingly. This personalized approach ensures that you can learn at your own pace without feeling overwhelmed. Moreover, AI can create custom scenarios to make your learning more intuitive and practical. For example, you can tell AI personalize your learning by clearly telling AI that you are AD or intermediate on a given topic of learning, and AI can provide answers based on your expertise level. Also, you can make custom scenarios to make learning more interesting. Many AI tools now come with speaking and listening features, making interaction effortless for visually impaired users. Tasks like formatting an email can be done simply by prompting AI, without the need to manually edit paragraphs. These advancements are transforming how visually impaired people interact with technology, making it an invaluable part of their daily lives. Are there safety concerns that we need to worry about, hallucination for example? While AI is a fantastic co-pilot, it's crucial not to rely on it blindly. AI's responses are only as good as the data it has been trained on, and the quality of answers can vary based on the topic. One significant issue with current AI systems is their tendency to hallucinate answers when they are unsure. For example, if you ask a general AI about a specific medical or intellectual question, you might receive an inaccurate or fabricated response. Perplexity AI is one platform attempting to solve this problem by providing relevant links to support its answers, allowing users to verify the information. This approach helps ensure the accuracy of the responses and reduces the risk of hallucinations. To use AI effectively and safely, consider the following best practices. A. Ask clear and well-defined questions. B. Provide sufficient context for the AI to understand your query fully. C. Always ask follow-up questions to verify the accuracy of the answers and to check for hallucinations. D. Cross-check new information from other reliable sources to ensure its validity. By following these guidelines, you can maximize the benefits of AI while minimizing the risks associated with its use. Conclusion: the future is bright with the widespread adoption of AI, especially for visually impaired individuals. AI has the potential to become an integral part of our lives, offering unparalleled assistance and improving our productivity. By embracing AI and leveraging its capabilities, we can enhance our daily experiences and achieve our goals more efficiently. Let's look forward to a future where technology works seamlessly to support and empower us, making our lives better in every way. I'm Saurabh Yadav, a principal applied scientist at Oracle, leading the charge on AI initiatives for accessibility. A proud alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, I bring over a decade of experience in deep learning, AI, and software development, having worked at industry leaders like Samsung R&D and Johnson Controls. I've consistently pushed my boundaries, winning 2 innovation challenges, securing 7 U.S. patents, and publishing 1 research paper. On a personal note, I'm navigating a progressive vision loss disorder, leading towards blindness. This experience fuels my deep commitment to inclusivity and accessibility. I actively champion these values and skills in this field, promoting accessibility features and raising awareness. In addition, I'm a core member of the Oracle Diverse Abilities and Rotary Abilities Clubs, further contributing to accessibility initiatives in my community. I am keenly focused on innovating solutions for visually impaired individuals, leveraging my extensive technology experience and the latest advancements in AI. Beyond work, I enjoy delving into non-fiction books and learning music through the keyboard. Let's connect. I'm eager to collaborate and drive positive change in AI, accessibility, and product development. 3 giggles and cuddles. Lollipop opens up her eyes to a new day, to the bright yellow sun playing peekaboo with the clouds, its warm rays streaming in through the window and caressing her face tenderly. She greets the day with a heartfelt smile, unbothered by the wet sheets and the soggy night dress clinging to her legs. She rolls out of bed, sending her stuffed doll and blanket to the floor. A mildly rancid smell permeates the room and she stops, making her way to the restroom. Her damp nightdress ends up on the floor as she goes, her footsteps light and quick on the cool morning floor. The sound of running water is loud in the tranquil early morning hours. The birds coo in their nest outside the window, nudging each other awake as the sky turns into beautiful shades of bronze, yellow, and orange. Deeming herself clean, Lollipop makes her way to her destination. Her mother's room. The door is cracked open 2 inches, it always is for her. Grinning, she tiptoes in, her grin getting wider at the sight before her. Raising her fists, the child takes a few steps back before launching herself into a running jump, her tiny body arcing through the air, defying gravity, before it lands on the bed, barely missing her slumbering mother's outstretched arm. She lets out a gleeful giggle, the sound of it imitated by the rousing birds in the tree. She snuggles into the curve of her mother's arm, cushioning her head against her chest. The mother's hand comes up to rest on her head, accompanied by gentle mumblings as she rejoins her daughter in the world of the waking. "Hi mommy." "Hello baby." The mother croons, pressing a kiss to the crown of her head. "She smells like flowers and sleep." Mother always laughs when the girl says it, saying that sleep has no smell. But it does. "What's wrong?" "Mommy, sorry," the girl says sheepishly, "I wet the bed again." The mother lets out a soft noise before throwing her other arm around the little girl and folding her close to her heart. The girl goes, snuggling into the safe warm space like a kitten seeks out the warmth of a mother cat. "Oh baby, it's okay. Did you wash yourself like I taught you?" The girl nods, her nose brushing against the neckline of her mother's nightdress, a larger version of the one she had discarded in the bathroom earlier. "Yes, mommy." "Did you leave your nightdress on the floor?" Mother puts all the dirty clothes in the laundry basket, but she always says to leave the nightdress on the floor. Good girl." Another kiss. "Am I really a good girl?" "Of course, baby." "Why would you say that?" The child tries to speak, to tell her mother that good girls don't wet their beds and leave their mothers to clean up the mess. But a child's thoughts are like a hummingbird, hovering over a flower for a good minute before flitting to and fro. Her mother's hands in her hair, tenderly working out the knots, the cushiony warmth of her large frame and her comforting scent all wipe away those thoughts like a sponge wipe being run over a wet marble countertop. Everyone has their little rituals and traditions. Mankind is built on them. Every person has their own thing that they do, either with themselves or others. The questions always start out simple and small before they run amok, like a little puppy loose in the garden, getting more ridiculous and senseless that they would even try a saint's patience. But the mother listens and answers every question with practiced ease. The girl is too young to know this, but will look fondly on this moment when she is older with a child of her own, telling them about the times she used to lie in bed with her mother and ask her anything and everything, just the two of them. The child babbles. The mother listens. When the torrent of questions doesn't stop, she opens her eyes and meets her daughters. She asks a few questions of her own and slowly, their chat meanders into dreams, both waking and lucid ones. One thing leads to another, warm touches become playful and soon chuckles break the conversations. They start as a small trickle, just like a river, gains mirth through the conversation into a gurgling, wide, torrent of giggles that border on the uncontrollable. Amidst the conversation, the healing power of touch is boldly sought and wantonly shared, in abundance, an avalanche, all-enveloping. The curls entangle and a muted ouch is simply soothed. The noses touching, tight pressing kisses on the cheek, the quick brush of lips on the forehead. The hands held in each other's in a silent promise of undemanding yet all-encompassing love that two intertwined beings can share. They drift in and out of consciousness. The girl's hand plays idly with her mother's earlobe, focused on the shiny golden earring dangling from it. Her mother's ears are so pretty and the jewelry so shiny. The girl wants ears like her mother too, but her mother always tells her to wait when she's older. But when will I be older? A playful smile, a hand pushing her wild curls off her face and a wink. Mummy will tell you when you're older. The unending hugs and unceasing prattle set the tone for the day. Full of love, joy, and zest. Yes, lollipop, I feel your warmth when I hold you in your arms, hope my warm and welcoming arms are the home you always come back to. Rupa Sankaran. For the power of acceptance. Once, there were two sisters. The elder one was 17 years old. She was visually challenged. The younger one was 3 years old. She had challenge with speech. Both of them were sitting in the hall, surrounded by books and toys. The little sister was happily seeing a picture of a watermelon in one of the books. Excited, she tried showing the picture to the elder sister. She tried twice. When the elder sister did not respond, the little one gently took the elder sister's finger and traced the watermelon. It was indeed an emotional moment. Moved by this, the elder one thought to herself that if she would ever give her heart to anyone, she would for sure give to the little sister. Our challenges are a part of our identity. The two sisters are different flowers of the same garden of life, spreading fragrance of acceptance, love, and empathy. Firdos. 5 Self-driving, the future is here. I had my first opportunity to ride in a self-driving car recently in San Francisco. It was a surreal experience. The car was a Google Waymo. And it was driving itself on the busy and chaotic streets of the city, completely without a driver. The entire experience was very accessible for me as a blind person. I requested the ride through the Waymo app on my phone and the car arrived at my location in a few minutes. It had to stop a little behind me because there were other cars parked in front of me. There was a Find My Car button in the app, which was super helpful in guiding me to where the car was. There was also the option to show some text on a screen on the car in a background color of my choice to help me locate the car. While I am blind, my wife who can see a little bit found this very helpful in spotting the car, and most importantly, in making sure this was our vehicle. Once we got in the car and pressed start, the car gave us some security tips because it was aware this was our first ride, information from the app. Then, it started driving, and it was a little unnerving to have no one in the driver's seat. It drove like a pro through the very busy streets with pedestrians randomly crossing the road, the cable cars, and the generally complex traffic patterns of the city. I could sit back and even put on some Bollywood music on the car's sound system. When we got to our destination, the car informed us about where we were relative to our destination, as in, we will need to go to the left after we got out. Again, this was helpful. Accessibility was considered to blend with the overall experience. I wish they would also add the ability to talk to the car in natural language for simple commands like, "Can you drop me a block ahead instead?" or "Can we stop at a Starbucks on the way?" What Google has done with the overall accessibility experience, and the awesome feeling of independence I had on taking the ride, was truly amazing. I think the future of self-driving cars is here, and I am excited to see how it will change the world for people with disabilities. Manish Agrawal. 6. A wild 1970s hijacking. When Professor Roderick Hilsinger boarded Ethiopian Airlines Flight 708, he had no idea about the in-flight nightmare soon to unfold. Here's how he and 93 other passengers survived the ordeal. The men were seated in the second row of the main cabin, Hilsinger in the aisle and Wiley by the window. On the inbound legs, their positions had been reversed. But as they'd boarded this morning, the 6'1" Hilsinger claimed the aisle seat for himself. "It's my turn to stretch out," he told Wiley. "You take the inside." A minor detail, but as with so many this morning, one that would take on an outsize importance. Now, as Hilsinger undid his lap belt and took full advantage of the extra legroom, he heard a woman speaking sharply behind him in Amharic, the official language of Ethiopia. At the sound of her voice, 5 men and another woman, spread throughout the cabin, all rose from their seats. They were armed with handguns. Hilsinger, scarcely believing what he was seeing, watched as a young man in the next row stood, raised his gun toward the man seated next to him and shot him at point-blank range. Nobody screamed. No one cried out. Save for the whoosh of the turbofans, the cabin was silent. Hilsinger noticed that another man had come up the aisle, stopping right by his shoulder. In one hand he held a gun. In the other, a hand grenade. Now the first hijacker, the one who'd shot his seatmate, turned to face the passengers and said, this time in English, "This plane is hijacked." The early 1970s are sometimes referred to, with unsubtle irony, as the golden age of hijacking. Spurred both by a surge in international terrorism and the, somewhat valid, perception that airlines were far happier to pay ransoms than lose planes, an astonishing number of passenger flights were commandeered between 1968 to 1972. Some 326 aircraft worldwide, sometimes 2 on the same day. The survivable hijackings for the passengers, at least, often hinged on the actions of trained personnel. Air marshals, undercover police or private security guards, whose numbers soon increased dramatically to counter the threat. But Rod Hilsinger was none of these things. He was a 41-year-old university professor, with a wife and 4 kids ages 7 to 14 waiting for him back home in Philadelphia. Now he found himself at the epicenter of one of the most unusual and terrifying hijackings of them all. He had no way of knowing it, but in a few seconds, the lives of all 94 passengers and crew would rest squarely on his shoulders. Approximately 90 minutes earlier, a sleepy Hilsinger and Wiley had queued up for a pre-flight security check at Haile Selassie I International Airport, now known as the Addis Ababa Bole International Airport. As anyone who traveled by air in the 1970s can attest, airport security then was lax by modern standards. But in late 1972, Ethiopia was embroiled in a bloody insurrection in Eritrea, a restive province that would win its political freedom in 1993. Ethiopian Airlines had already suffered multiple hijacking attempts, several of them successful at the hands of Eritrean separatists. As Wiley recalled in a newspaper interview, that morning the screeners were taking no chances. As we checked our luggage, each case was opened and thoroughly inspected. After the items were cleared, we proceeded to the boarding area where all hand luggage and clothing was thoroughly searched. We stood in line in front of 3 draped search areas. Once inside, each item in my briefcase was inspected. 35mm film containers were opened. In fact, my 3 pens, 1 fountain and 2 ballpoint were opened and tested for their contents. Although there was no metal detecting machine in use, the combined search was the most thorough I have ever experienced. The security screening complete, the passengers walked across the tarmac to the Boeing 720B, one of Ethiopian Airlines' 3 such flagship jets, piloted on this day by Captain Katsila Haile. Among those headed home were a party of elderly British birdwatchers and a number of Americans, including a group of oil executives and a retired truck driver from Chicago named Frank Gembala. If any of them noticed a striking young Ethiopian woman with a voluminous afro, none made mention of her. Her name was Martha Mibrato, and she was a 22-year-old medical student at Addis Ababa University. But unbeknownst to all but a close circle of CO conspirators, Mibrato wasn't headed home to Eritrea for a winter break. Dr. Nange Kamani, today a pediatric oncologist in Washington, D.C., was a classmate of Mibrato's, and he remembers her clearly. There were very few women in medical school. In my class of 18, only one was female. They stood out. Martha was a tall, lean woman, and she used to wear an afro. She might have based that on an American folk hero, Angela Davis. She was very sociable, very bright, had a lot of friends, didn't seem to be a recluse. But once you made the connection about Eritrea, it made more sense. We had a significant number of Eritreans in the medical school. From time to time we'd hear one had disappeared. The term in Amharic is, "She has gone to the desert," meaning they'd joined the guerrilla movement. Mibrato was one of 7 hijackers aboard Flight 708 that day. Like her, the majority were still students. But one Emmanuel Johannes was different. At 26, he was already a veteran hijacker, and sources indicate that he was the one who initiated this mission. After being involved in the successful takeover of an Ethiopian Airlines C-47 the previous year, Johannes had been sent to Addis Ababa by the Eritrean People's Liberation Front to recruit future hijackers. When a comrade returned from Eritrea with handguns and grenades, there was nothing left to do but wait. Up until the flat blam of the first hijacker's handgun, everything about Flight 708, the takeoff roll, the climb to the east and the pivot north toward Asmara, seemed routine. Now, as Rod Hilsinger struggled to take in what he'd just witnessed, the scene devolved into utter, terrifying chaos. As the first hijacker turned to address the passengers, Hilsinger saw a flash of movement in the next row. It was the man the hijacker had shot. Not only was he alive, but he too was holding a gun. No sooner had the hijacker begun speaking when the man leapt up and shot him. Hilsinger, belatedly, realized what was happening. There are security guards aboard this flight. As if on cue, now a second group, all men, rose from their seats, each gripping handguns. In an instant, the cabin of the Boeing jet became a shooting gallery, with the air marshals Hilsinger counted 5 in total firing down the aisle in both directions. He saw something else, something no one else seemed to have noticed. The hijacker at his shoulder had pulled the pin on his hand grenade. A few feet in front of him, the first hijacker, the one wounded by the security guard, was trying to crawl down the aisle as another guard ran toward him. From behind him, Hilsinger heard a scream. It was one of the female hijackers, who ran to the wounded hijacker, leaping to shield him with her body. But it was no use. As Hilsinger looked on, the guard ran up, knelt over the 2 hijackers and shot each of them in the head at point-blank range. Now a security guard ran up from the back of the plane and shot down the second hijacker, the one holding the grenade. He fell, releasing its lever. Hilsinger watched helplessly as it tumbled from the man's hand, dropped into his own lap and then rolled onto the deck, coming to rest squarely between his and drive. Wiley's feet. Hilsinger glanced at Wiley, but his colleague was frozen in his seat, his face a plaster mask of shock. Hilsinger looked down at the grenade. 20 years before, when he was a seaman in the U.S. Navy, Rod Hilsinger had exhibited a talent for quick action. According to Hilsinger's son, Doug, when the power aboard his father's ship failed once, he fashioned a DIY fuse from a strip of aluminum foil, restoring electrical service long enough for the ship to return to port for repairs, earning himself a commendation in the process. "Ah, it was no big deal," Rod Hilsinger would later say. "It was what anyone would do." But what would anyone do with a live hand grenade aboard a commercial jet? In his Navy days, Hilsinger had trained with grenades, and he knew that he had approximately 7 seconds in which to do something, anything. A single, crystal-clear thought flashed through his mind. "I've got to get this son of a bitch the hell away from me." Hilsinger bent down, snatched up the grenade and, fully conscious of the furious gun battle raging in the aisle, ducked his head out to see where he could throw it. Behind him were the terrified faces of his fellow passengers. But ahead of him, between the main and first-class cabins, was a small galley. There was no one inside. Hilsinger tossed in the grenade. "I look to see what I can throw on top to smother the blast," he recalled in an interview shortly after the incident. He had just stood up, scrabbling in the overhead bins for a pillow or a blanket, when the grenade detonated. The airplane lurched downward and slid into a steep bank. For those already leery of air travel and all its intimations of danger, explosive decompression is probably the worst of all possible fears. It's certainly the most terrifying to contemplate. Whether caused by faulty components or shoddy maintenance, as may have been the case in January 2024, when a panel blew off the side of a Boeing 737 MAX 9 over Portland, Oregon, the results of rapid depressurization can be dire and often fatal, causing occupants to be sucked from the fuselage or triggering the rapid destruction of the entire airframe. Incredibly, that's not what happened aboard Flight 708. The grenade expended most of its force downward through the cabin floor. But while the pressure hull wasn't breached, the blast severed the controls to the rudder and the horizontal stabilizer trim, and disabled one of the jet's inboard engines. The aircraft was now in serious trouble. "I felt it dropping down," Richard Wiley said about the plane, recalling the terrifying moments after the grenade exploded. "It was like a nightmare. The cabin had filled with acrid smoke, water gushed from the galley's shattered plumbing, and the walls of the cabin were slathered with gore. There was blood all over the place," Wiley added, "and the plane was dropping like a stone. We thought it was the end." Remarkably, the explosion and the airplane's plunge had barely paused the gun battle. Struck by a security guard's bullet, one hijacker had fallen at the feet of a trio of birdwatchers, including Rodney Seawright and his companions Duncan and Biddy McIntosh, a vignette memorialized in a contemporary newspaper cartoon. At a loss for what to do, the elderly birders placed their feet on the hijacker to prevent him from getting up. A security guard ran up, knelt by the man and pumped several more bullets into him for good measure. It was only later that Biddy McIntosh looked down and realized the blood dotting her blouse was her own. The grenade had sent shrapnel whizzing into both her and Rodney Seawright, who would carry fragments in his leg for the rest of his life. According to Seawright's daughter Anne, he displayed characteristic English pluck. "He never mentioned it," she said in a recent interview, though he kept a notebook with puncture holes and bloodstains he'd had in his pocket at the time. A few rows behind them sat Frank Gemballa, the former truck driver. A minute earlier, before the female hijacker had signaled the others, Gemballa watched in puzzlement as the nervous-looking young man seated next to him stooped down, removed his platform shoes and pulled an object from the sole. He was one of the 7 hijackers, and at the sound of his female comrade's signal, he rose with a small gun in his hand. No sooner had he stood up than a security guard shot him down. "He fell dead right there in front of me," Gemballa later told a reporter. Like Hilsinger and Wiley, he barely had time to take it all in. A moment later, when the grenade detonated and a torrent of water poured from the shattered galley, he made his final peace with the world. "I said to myself, this is it." As Captain Hiley struggled to regain control of the plane, Gemballa also witnessed the final, awful scene in the gun battle. The death of the second female hijacker, possibly Martha Mibrato. As he recounted in a newspaper interview, Gembala turned and saw a woman crawling down the aisle with a gun in her hand. A security guard was right behind her, he said. He pumped her head so full of lead she couldn't pick it up anymore. As quickly as it'd begun, it was all over. The shooting had stopped, and Captain Haile, as gingerly as he could, had turned the big Boeing back toward Addis Ababa. The jet had only been in the air 13 minutes. Perhaps 90 seconds had elapsed since the start of the hijacking. Richard Wiley cautiously raised his head and looked around the smoke-filled cabin. Seated as he was at the front of the main cabin, Wiley hadn't seen the conclusion of the gun battle behind him, and now he realized that he didn't even know who'd won. 2 rows behind him was a man holding a gun. "Who are you?" Wiley nervously asked. "A marshal," said the man. Wiley breathed a sigh of relief. It was only now that he turned and saw Rod Hilsinger slumped in his seat, bloodied and unconscious. When the grenade had gone off, much of the explosive force that wasn't directed downward hit Rod Hilsinger instead. His face, shoulder, and both legs were lacerated by grenade fragments, which resembled nothing so much as handfuls of black peppercorns. Not a few of them either. Surgeons later estimated Hilsinger had been hit by roughly 300 pieces of shrapnel, which had torn open an artery in his right leg. As Wiley looked on in horror, he saw a freshet of blood shooting into the air. Working quickly, Wiley shoved the armrests out of the way and laid Hilsinger down. Using his belt, his tie, and his pens, he fashioned tourniquets and managed to stanch the flow of blood. Elsewhere, flight attendants were seeing to the wounded. In the aisle lay the bodies of 6 slain hijackers. The 7th would soon die in hospital. Shortly after, the aircraft made its final approach to Haile Selassie International Airport. It's unclear whether or not the main wheel brakes had been rendered inoperative by the grenade blast, but Wiley recalled feeling stark terror as Captain Haile, calling upon every ounce of piloting skill he possessed, set the stricken airliner down. As the thrust reversers howled, the jet shuddered and shook, but it eventually rolled to a stop. According to Anne Searight, the birdwatcher's daughter, when ground personnel wrenched open the cabin door, a crewman peered inside the blood-spattered aircraft and fainted. Wiley and another passenger carried out the still unconscious Hilsinger, stepping gingerly over the 15-inch hole the grenade had blown in the deck. In addition to the dead hijackers, 5 passengers, 2 security guards and 2 flight attendants had been wounded, though all would survive. It was later estimated that between 30 to 40 shots had been fired inside the aircraft. For most of that day, Rod Hilsinger remained in a coma at Addis Ababa's Zudatu Hospital. By nightfall, though, he'd begun to respond and, in Wiley's words, act like the Rod Hilsinger we all know. He remained there under observation for a couple of days, during which he received 2 visits from Ethiopia's Emperor Haile Selassie himself. After Hilsinger made a passing remark about Selassie's gold pilot's watch, the emperor gifted him one for himself, along with some culturally significant relics, including a carved cane, a spear, a garish painting of Haile Selassie riding a lion and a key to the ancient city of Aksum, though many of these later turned out to be cheap replicas. So, what spurred the hijacking? Interviewed just days later, Hilsinger speculated that the militants' goal was to divert the plane and exchange the passengers for imprisoned Eritrean separatists. As for Martha Mibrato, she may have died a violent and ignominious death, but thanks to the impassioned manifesto she'd penned the night before, she became something of a folk hero, at least among those opposed to Haile Selassie during the end stage of his decades-long rule. Later, a fictionalized version of Mibrato's story appeared in Drive. Abraham Verghese's novel Cutting for Stone, which spent 2 years on the New York Times bestseller list starting in 2010. Like Drive? Kamani, Drive. Verghese was a schoolmate of Mibrato, and he too retains vivid memories of the young med student. Mibrato was pretty and she had a big afro. Later, some people speculated that's where she'd hidden her revolver. When we heard about the hijacking, we were in shock. I suspect there were other hijackings, but they were kept quiet. It was a prestige thing. It's funny. I remember flying on a plane leaving Ethiopia around then. You could easily ID the security people. They seemed so nonchalant, reading novels. What struck us was that they'd started a shootout. They obviously didn't care for the safety of the passengers. Whether or not Mibrato had relied on her hair to smuggle a gun aboard the flight, the fact remained that despite the stringent security, all of the hijackers had managed to board the plane without incident. Even given that at least some of them had hidden small guns in their platform shoes, it raises the distinct possibility that one or more of the airport screeners were sympathetic to the Eritrean cause and had been directed to let them pass. After he returned to the States, Rod Hilsinger was lauded as a hero, awarded a then princely $75,000 settlement from Ethiopian Airlines and a presidential citation from President Nixon. But the afterglow was short-lived. On a celebratory trip to Walt Disney World, the family watched on a portable TV as Richard Nixon resigned. "My citation's worthless. This guy's a crook," Hilsinger said, with typical equanimity. The money disappeared quickly as well, invested in his second wife's farm shortly before she flew to Haiti to obtain a divorce, days before a new Pennsylvania law would have mandated they share the marital assets. Hilsinger also had sometimes significant pain to contend with. In addition to a hairline fracture in his ankle, an infection in his wounded leg turned into phlebitis, inflaming the tissues and threatening to create blood clots. He walked with a slight limp for the rest of his life. But one thing never seems to have changed. And luckily for the passengers and crew aboard Flight 708 that fateful day, Rod Hilsinger just happened to have taken the aisle seat. Seth Lorinchi, 7 Happiness in Every Bite. I had started my business journey from 2011. I did a lot of things in the past and had not made any loss. However, I was not satisfied, but this idea helped make me into an entrepreneur. Everything was going perfectly. One day, a different idea came to me. I had begun to cook. I am a foodie. While cooking, I encountered many more ideas about cooking. I asked myself, how about if I start a food business? My first experiments were chocolates and cakes. I started serving various types of chocolates. My chocolates were getting famous very fast. Soon, one by one, I introduced other cakes, brownies, and cookies. I was very surprised. Never thought that I could be a baker. Then I was introduced to Greedy Go. It is an online kitchen, a Kolkata-based company. I get the clients from online mostly. Also, I have sold my items to different parts of the country. Presently Greedy Go has a good name in Kolkata. My stuff has gone to Guwahati, Delhi, and even taken to the US by a guest. I have a lot of work in my daily routine, but cooking is inspiring me like my dancing. My products include Choco Brownie, Choco Cookies, Choco Dry Fruit Cookies, Pineapple Cookies. In Birthday Cake, Chocolate Cake, Butterscotch Cake, Pineapple Cake, Orange Cake, Red Velvet Cake, Black Forest. In Plum Cake, Chocolate Cake, Coffee Choco Walnut Cake, Orange Cake, Pineapple Cake, and Fruit Cake. I take the help of others for the decoration. The rest is all done by me. And readers, if you want to taste my baking delights, you may contact me on 933-191-2047 or 810-028-9149. Sampagosh, 8. I worked to reform CBSE's testing system. NTA can learn from it. When trust in exams crumbles, so does the future of a nation. India faces this harsh reality as paper leaks become disturbingly routine, with the events of the past few weeks being quite unprecedented. Leaks from Gujarat to Bihar, along with cancellations of coveted entrance examinations, will directly impact the future of aspirants in medical and other professions. I recall my experience with the 2018 CBSE paper leak, when I was Secretary of School Education and Literacy. In that instance, while the CBSE was not at fault, the ire was directed at the CBSE chairperson. Against all odds, I defended her and attempted to put in place a system that has stood the test of time, resulting in no such leaks thereafter. Not many are aware that most of the entrance examinations currently conducted by the National Testing Agency, NTA, were earlier conducted by the CBSE, which did a decent job. The decision to set up a separate agency was taken in 2017. The officers tasked with heading this agency held impeccable credentials. They included Vineet Joshi and even Subodh Kumar Singh, who was recently shifted from the NTA's Director General post. In light of this, the key question is why the leak happened when the officers had such impeccable credentials. I distinctly recall that even in 2018, then Union Education Minister Prakash Javadekar was in favor of sacking the CBSE chairperson to defuse the situation. That was the easy way out. However, I managed to convince him otherwise, as such a step would have demoralized the entire organization. Understand the root of the problem. Today, an easy way out has been found without even determining the responsibility of the concerned officer. Current Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has gotten away with just taking moral responsibility after prematurely denying that the paper was leaked. My experience tells me that all governments resort to such easy ways out instead of understanding the root of the problem. Whether it was the crisis in the coal sector in 2014, when I took over as Secretary, Coal, Government of India, or the paper leak crisis in 2018, my approach was always the same. Identify the root causes of the crisis and develop solutions through in-depth understanding and analysis. This strategy proved effective in both instances. The coal crisis was resolved and we haven't seen a paper leak in the CBSE since 2018. In the context of the current crisis, though, there is a CBI investigation underway to determine the responsibility of those involved in this paper leak. I doubt that CBI is equipped to suggest preventive measures. It might instead focus on hounding officers, potentially demoralizing most of them. It's a scenario I have witnessed during my tenure as Coal Secretary. The consequences of CBI's overreach can still be seen, with many honest officers suffering today. Yet, those in the audience love this drama. The government has also set up a committee led by Dr. K. Radhakrishnan, former chairman, ISRO, to suggest ways to prevent such irregularities in the future. While this is a typical governmental response during a crisis, I hope the committee devises a robust formula to prevent such occurrences. It is ironic, though, why the eminent members of the NTA board, headed by the former chairman of UPSC with several IIT directors as members, didn't look at the existing processes that led to the leak in the first place. What CBSE did right? We will, perhaps, eventually get to why the leaks happened and who was responsible for them, but it would be worthwhile to examine how CBSE implemented a leak-proof system in 2018 that remains effective today and see if there are any lessons for the NTA. After the unfortunate paper leak in 2018, the entire examination process was scrutinized by the CBSE to plug all possible loopholes. This intensive in-house exercise involved 1. Review of the security checks to ensure that the question papers reach the examinees without tampering. 2. To locate all areas of potential weakness in the transportation, storage, retrieval, and distribution of question papers from the printing presses to the examinees, and collection and transportation of the answer sheets from the exam center to the evaluation center. 3. Utilizing technology to minimize human intervention. A detailed analysis revealed gaps. However, these gaps were external to the CBSE. Within CBSE, the highest integrity was maintained. The following steps were implemented. 1. Time and motion study. The entire process of examination was studied, and every minute step was recorded, through an adapted version of a time and motion study. 2. Amendment of examination bylaws. Based on the gaps, extensive changes were made in the examination bylaws. 3. The secrecy system of CBSE. A strong system of secrecy was maintained with a carefully selected controller of examinations and a secrecy officer. B. This system is not followed by most examination bodies. Therefore, all matters of secrecy are on open files and pass from one stage to another for approval. C. In CBSE, the secret unit has many delegated powers and the confidentiality of the process is maintained fiercely. 4. Secrecy agreement signed by chairperson and controller of exams. A. It was discovered that an ex-chairperson had happily given away all the safety and secrecy aspects of question papers, QPs, on live television. B. Since many of the systems of safety and secrecy are unique to the CBSE, now all chairs and controllers sign a secrecy agreement for life. 5. Development of QPs. Decisions taken on 1. Number of QPs. 2. Changing the predictability of QPs by introducing exam pattern changes, though changes are announced beforehand. 3. Reviewing the pool of paper setters and moderators. 4. Capacity building of paper setters and moderators. 5. Review and re-engineering of every single safety and security aspect of the question paper. 6. Review and re-engineering of the safety and security aspects of the answer sheets, etc. 7. The unique packaging of QPs and answer sheets. If tampered with, it was easy to detect which QP of which exam center was tampered with. The committee set up to examine various processes of examinations conducted by the NTA should look into the steps taken by CBSE post 2018. 1. Identification of external sites. This is really the crux. A. Earlier, exam centers were chosen based on who offered to become a center. Post-reforms, mandatory criteria for the selection of exam centers were laid down. B. Disallowed the system of self-centers, that is, students of a school have an exam center in the same school. Such self-centered private schools were found to have excellent results pre-reform, but post-reform, their results came down substantially. C. Only remotely located Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas, JNVs, were allowed self-centers with outside O. D. The majority of the exam centers were in private schools. A thorough review of exam centers was done, and it was decided to first exhaust examination centers in central government institutions Kendriya Vidyalayas and JNVs and then proceed to give to private schools after a thorough background check and history of holding exams. E. For the selection of QP custodians, the Ministry of Finance was contacted, and CBSE entered into MOUs with HQs of C. Earlier, CBSE signed an MOU with the concerned branch office only. All storage facilities also received a letter from MOF for ensuring the integrity of exams. F. Mandatory criteria for the selection of storage facilities were laid down. Basic facilities, such as CCTV cameras, senior and experienced managers, approachability, strong room facilities, etc. became the criteria for the selection of storage facilities. G. Specific directions, such as a bank branch located on the premises of a school that is an examination center cannot be selected as the custodian bank for that center. 2. Delivery of QP. A. The whole process of transportation with real-time information was maintained. 3. Identification of external stakeholders. A. Mandatory SOPs and criteria laid down for the selection and appointment of center superintendents, invigilators, observers, etc. B. The Chief Secretary and DGP of every state addressed concerns before every examination. C. The DMS and SBS of every district were informed in advance about the exam centers in their jurisdiction. 4. Pattern of exams. Complete review of the pattern of exams and introduction of the element of unpredictability. 5. Use of technology. A huge amount of technology was deployed. But unlike NTA, CBSE does not depend on third parties for preparing its software. CBSE has in-house expert teams that prepare all the sensitive software. The teams consist of permanent employees. B. On examination day, time/date tagged and location tagged photographs of the storage place are received. C. Even if one QP package was found even slightly damaged, the observer and center superintendent had to report and the online delivery of the new QP would kick in. D. Except for a few of those subjects where the number of examinees was very large, almost all the other QPs were delivered online in real time through an encryption-decryption process. These QPs were printed on the spot in the school with the help of fast-speed printers and under the observer's supervision. E. Same-day action was taken against teachers/principals who were found to have opened the QP packages even 5 minutes earlier than the stipulated time. All this could be monitored on account of real-time information made available for each and every center with the use of technology. 6. The cost of mistakes. A. SOPs issued to each stakeholder. The do's and don'ts were made very clear. B. Every mistake could lead to the disaffiliation of a school in case it was a private school, or severe and fast action if the person concerned was a government servant. 7. The funding of examinations. A. The CBSE was subsidizing the examinations at a huge cost that could impact the integrity of the examinations. B. The examination fees were raised to accommodate improved logistics, safety, and security of the exam process. C. The NTA also needs to look at the heavy cost they are bearing. 8. Advantage CBSE. A. CBSE has permanent employees, recruited through a very transparent and structured process. NTA runs mainly with the help of consultants. B. CBSE affiliated schools, therefore, have total control over their exam centers. In contrast, the NTA has no control. C. CBSE has a very systematic set of examination bylaws, which have been upheld by the courts. This system is not there in NTA. There are hardly any SOPs in the D. CBSE has more than 16 full-fledged regional offices in the country manned by permanent employees of CBSE. These regional offices monitor every aspect of exams, from transportation to selection of exam centers, custodians, invigilators, evaluation, etc. The NTA has no regional offices despite the fact that it caters to many more examinees than they. E. The system of secrecy and controller of examinations does not exist in the F. The NTA does not have in-house tech capability like the for every aspect of its functioning, it has a vendor. G. The NTA was not set up to help every individual university have its own unique entrance exam. H. The NTA was set up to devise a singular common entrance exam for all higher educational institutions, HAES. It would be left to the HAES to use the results of these tests for their admissions. We have this habit of focusing totally on penalizing people, many times even before conclusively determining who is at fault. What actually works is a systemic improvement, as was brought about by CBSE's former chairperson, who would have otherwise been sacked. Ironically, the trust in exams conducted by the NTA in higher education was created by a distrust of everyone else. The CBSE cannot be trusted, state boards and governments cannot be trusted, and universities cannot be trusted. Only, a centralized agency conducting exams can be trusted. Now, this trust has also been shattered, ruining the lives of millions of students, proving that the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. Anil Swarup. The author is a retired civil servant and former secretary in the Government of India.